you doing today? Welcome to the Hyrum City Museum's Back in Time lesson for January. So did you know that today is actually January 26th of this new year, 2021? And what's really interesting about that is if you think about the numbers for today, it's 1, 2, 6, 2, 1, which means it's the same forwards and backwards, which is a palindrome, which is a fun new word if you don't know it. So see, today is 1, 2, 6, 2, 1. It's also 1, 2, 6, 2, 1. This whole week is like that. So this actually has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about today. I just thought it was really cool and something maybe cool you can tell your mom or your friends or somebody else. So I thought I'd share it with you. One thing that I love is learning new things. And that's part of what I love about this job here at the Hyrum City Museum. Is I probably learn something new almost every single day. One of the things that I learned about when I was younger like you was the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation. So the Shoshone are a group of Native Americans that lived all throughout this region, throughout the western United States. And they lived in different bands or family groups. And a big part of why they did that was so that they could find enough resources, which is mostly food and shelter and clothing, things like that, so they could survive. And so they were in smaller groups so that they could get enough resources. Shoshone has always been one of my favorite words. I think it's fun to say, Shoshone. Don't you think so? So it actually comes from their own language. The word sosogoi, which means they who travel by foot. And the reason they call themselves that is because they would travel throughout this entire region throughout different times of the year to find the different resources they needed to survive. They would go different places for fish or for pine nuts. They would gather bulbs, wild potatoes, rabbits, deer, all sorts of things like that so that they could survive. I have a good friend who is a member of the Shoshone, and he told me once that Cache Valley, here where we live, it's like their neighborhood. And I really liked that explanation because I think, what is normal to us now in present days that you have a house and you live there, and that's your neighborhood where you always are. But because they had to move around to different places during different times of the year to find the food and shelter and other things they needed, they didn't live in one place all year long, but it was like their neighborhood. This was their homeland, and this is where they were. And so I think it's really important for us to remember that the land that we live on is part of the Shoshone's neighborhood, and it has been for hundreds of years. The reason I want to talk about the Shoshone today is because this coming Friday, is a very important anniversary for them. Almost 160 years ago, hundreds of members of the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation were massacred. That means that they were killed. An army came in while they were camping and killed hundreds of them. And they were in their winter camp, which is in the very north end of this valley, right near the Bear River. The Shoshone call it Boa Ogai, which means Big River. That's what they call it. Every year on January 29th, the descendants of the Shoshone who survived and other tribal members, and also members of the public, gather to remember the anniversary of that event. And it's sad. It's a sad thing that happened, but it's really important that we remember it and honor those lives that were lost. And the current, the living band members are working really hard now to create an interpretive center. They've been able to buy the land. And this year, because of the pandemic, the public isn't invited. They're just doing a private event, which will be available broadcast a few days later next week. And we'll try to remember to post that link on our social media too, if you'd like to watch it. But they're really hoping by next year they'll have an amphitheater built. And so if you get the chance to go to that, I've been to it a few times, and it's a really rewarding experience and something that's very important to the history of our area, if it's something you're interested, if you like history. So another thing that I think is really important for us to remember is that American Indians, like the Shoshone, are not just something that existed in history. They're a part of our communities today. So I'm going to show you a couple of pictures really quick of a couple of Shoshone leaders. This first one this is Chief Washiki, and he was one of the chiefs of the Shoshone people. This picture was taken in about 1860. So you can see that's a nice picture of him. He's got his nice headdress and some different things that are important to him. And so this picture was taken a long time ago, right? Well over 100 years ago. I'm going to show you another leader of the Shoshone. This is Chairman Darren Perry. This picture was taken a few years ago. He's not the chair anymore. He moved on to some other things, but he's still one of their leaders. And this is a picture of him. And I put this little picture in here too because this shows a picture of him with his great-great-grandfather's headdress. And so the reason I wanted to show you these pictures is to help you see that Native American people are part of our community today just as much as they were when the pioneers first got here. So he actually lives here in Cache Valley, and he doesn't live in a teepee, right? He lives in a house, and you can see he wears the same kind of clothes we do. He has a nice necklace there that's an important part of his culture to him. But they're here part of our community just like everybody else. And culture is a very important thing. And so I want to talk about that for just a minute. Do you know what that means? Culture is very important. It's the things, everyone has it. It's the things that we eat. It's the songs that we sing and the stories we tell. I think it's even the things that we wear, the things that we believe in, and some of the skills and the hobbies and stuff like that that we have. The things that we learn from our parents and our families and our community. That's all part of our culture. And honestly, I think culture is really what makes life rich and meaningful and brings a lot of the beauty to our lives. One very important part of Native American culture are feathers. And if you were able to come to our really super fun second Saturday a couple weeks ago, we made some fun activities with feathers. And so that's what these are. These are little fans that we made out of feathers. So some of you might already have some of these at home. And if you don't, they're really easy to make. You could find some feathers at home and make some too. But part of the reason that feathers are so important to Native Americans is that they're really symbolic. And what they're symbolic, especially eagle feathers, because eagles soar really high up in the sky and get closer to the creator than anybody else. So when Native Americans are participating in important dances or ceremonies or other things in their lives, often they'll have feathers because that symbolizes being close with the creator. Another thing that, another place you see feathers a lot, like you see here, are in headdresses. And I'm going to talk about headdresses for just 1 second really quickly. We have this really great little feather fact sheet. If you come into the museum and want one of those, we have them here, you can pick up. But the headdresses are really important. And the reason they are is because feathers are something you would earn throughout your life. The headdresses took years for someone to make, because every time you did something brave or honorable or really kind or provided service to your community or to somebody, that was like a reward. That was somebody acknowledging those good things you did, and the more feathers you got, you'd add into your headdress. And so that's why the leaders always have a headdress, because that's how they would choose the leaders, or the people that were the most brave and honorable. And that's also why it's really not appropriate for people to wear headdresses. That's not part of their culture, and they haven't earned those feathers, because it really is a symbol of an achievement. And so that's something really important to remember. Another really important part of Native American culture is beading. And, you know, again, I have friends that are Native American, and you hear them talk about they spend hours beading, and it's stuff they do with their parents and grandparents. They make all kinds of beautiful things. And what's really neat about beads is they're, throughout history, they've been made of all kinds of different things. So for instance, this necklace I'm wearing, these beads are all made out of glass. They're actually glass beads. There are beads, like the bead on this necklace is actually, these are glass, and some of them are plastic, and then this is actually a rock. These two down here are both rocks that these beads are made out of. Some beads are made out of, like over here on the bottom of this dress, these beads are actually made out of shells. And so there's lots of different things beads can be made out of. Today, a lot of beads are made out of plastic and wood and things like that too. And for those of you that were able to come and get a little kit, we actually had 2 different kinds of kits. All of them have some of these glass beads in them, like this. We had some have red, some have blue, some have white. And then other ones there's some that have a really pretty kind of a clear glass bead with a flower in it. I don't have any to show you because I gave them all away. And then some of them have kind of like this bear claw, which this is just a plastic one, it's not real. But this is something too that could be used in decoration. And so with the bead kits that we gave out, some have, like this is one that has some wooden beads. There's other ones that have plastic beads. And really it's just to make a necklace however you like it. Everyone has either the 2 glass beads and the claw or 3 glass beads. And so you can do it kind of like I did, where I counted out the little beads that I had and I just kind of made them, distance them equally among those and put the big one in the middle. And then with these extra beads, I'm just making them fall on the ground, finishing my necklace out. So I'm going to finish this out while I'll tell you a couple more things here. So beads, like I said, there's all kinds of different beads, and a lot of it depended on where the native people were from. So native peoples that lived along coasts, you'd see more seashell bead in their work. And it also depends on time period. Because of course in the 1800s, nobody had plastic beads. That's silly, right? But there's all kinds of patterns and symbols. So for instance, this little round beaded badge has a nice little star pattern on it. And then there's like this that I have on my bag is another pretty pattern. Sometimes you see, here's another, this one has like a star on it also. But you can see, oh, this is one actually. I had a little loom. I made this when I was a little girl. We had a little loom, and so that's my name. I'm Jamie. And so I made this little beaded thing, and it could be a necklace, or if I wanted to, I could put on a hat or something. And honestly, I've just never done anything with it. I just remembered I had it, thought I'd come show you. But anyway, so there's all kinds of fun things you can do with beads. You can put them on clothing. You can wear them like jewelry. And they often are symbolic and mean things, just like feathers do. And the last thing I wanted to show you is just to point out, for instance, on this necklace that Mr. Perry's wearing, you see this rose symbol in there, and that's another very important symbolic symbol there too for him and his people. So I hope you learned something about beads. I hope you have fun making yourself a little necklace. And if you don't like necklaces, you know what? You could put it on a hat. If you have a hat, you can make it kind of like a hat band. Or if you want to make it smaller, you can make a bracelet or something like that. And if you really don't like it, then you can just give it to somebody. But that's all we're going to talk about today. Next month, we're going to have a super fun activity. We're going to talk about Martha Hughes Cannon a little bit. And then we also have a really fun second Saturday event coming up in February on the second Saturday. That's the day the museum's open, so you can come in. We're going to have a neat little display about some history of the Elite Hall, some artifacts that we actually found under the floor that no one's ever seen before, some cool stuff there. And if you want to have a little tour, go jump on the floor over there, you can do that. And we have all kinds of fun stuff going on. And we have a new curator named Courtney, and she is amazing on social media. So if you want to know what's going on, just look at Instagram, look at Facebook, and you can see everything that we have going on. So I hope you have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you soon, hopefully.